I want to have a rare moment of agreement with Casey. I think he's right. The problem started in the middle of World War II when a fundamental decision was made, and the question is, how do we get out of it? And driving it so that the tax benefit accrues to the individual and not the corporation is a way to start driving it in the right way. But let me make this point. At the end of the day, the question is, we are someplace, and the question is, how do we get someplace better? And that's what it really is about. And I may disagree with Howard Dean, but he's a liberal, he's a communist in disguise. But
a socialist. Maybe.
Well, socialist. You're right, Casey. He's a socialist. He's from Vermont, after all. But the fundamental problem is free choice. And frankly, I don't agree with Doug on the question of saying people shouldn't be able to insure. That's a free choice that says, look, join with me and we will band together and we will pool our money and we will create something, a protection against risk. So I'm not adverse to people doing it. I just think we ought to have it done with less government control and with more personal freedom in choosing it. At the end of the day, each one of us is ultimately responsible for what we say and what we do. But part of the way of guarding against risk is to be able to join with others in a pool to insure our home, insure our goods, insure our health. So I'm all in favor of private insurance. But he is right, 88% of the money that we pay in our healthcare system today comes from a third party. 46% of it comes from the federal government. The balance of it comes out of insurance, and only 12% comes out of our own individual pockets. There's got to be something to do. The system has to be in a place where people have, like in every other transaction that we involve in, purchasing a car, purchasing a home, purchasing food, purchasing clothing, where we have more personal responsibility involved.
No. Thank you. We only have about 6 or 7 minutes left, and I have a question I want to ask each panelist individually and not on a round-robin segment. My first one is for Howard Dean. According to a new Gallup poll released in late September, a question was asked, of every tax dollar that goes to Washington, D.C., how many cents of each dollar would you say is wasted? The Gallup poll found the median answer was 50 cents of waste. In a $4 trillion budget, that's $2 trillion down the drain. And Gallup said that skepticism about government's effectiveness is the highest in decades. So it's a practical question to you. How are you going to sell a very skeptical public, including this skeptical public, that the health plan is going to work when people believe government equals
Well,
waste?
That's actually an interesting observation, because I'm having some discussions, somewhat vehement ones with my own party. I think we're talking politics here, not policy. But I think if you want to, the way you sell something is to show that it works. When the Bush people put in the drug benefit that Karl talked about, I was opposed to it. 5 years later, I got to say I think it works, and it works very well. So we should say so. We should say, if somebody comes up with a good idea, we ought to say it's a good idea, whether it's a libertarian or a Democrat or a McCarthyite. I mean a Republican.
Fighting Joe McCarthy, we're one and all for you, fighting for our liberties.
Anyway, so now I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Don't worry, we're on to the next question. Thank you, Howard. That was a great answer. Great answer, Howard. Thank you.
So I think the way to look, actually, there's a strong libertarian streak in all Americans, including Democrats. I think the individual mandate is going to get itself in trouble because of that. But I think the way to dispel people's skepticism is to do it. People over 65 years old were the poorest people in America before Social Security and Medicare. Now they're not as an age group. Frankly, I advocate, and this is not in the bill, I think we're going to have to get this thing up and running for some people by 2010, and the only way to do that is to allow people under 50 to buy into Medicare if they choose. Because you can't create a new bureaucracy between now and November 2010. You've got to use an existing bureaucracy. So Americans have always been skeptical about their government. They always will be skeptical about their government. It is a society which almost everybody in America has libertarian tendencies. They do not like to be told what to do by the government, although I do think they're a little short on, we are as a society, a little short on personal responsibility. But I think to answer the question politically, if you want to dispel skepticism about this particular program, you better have it up and running by 2010, because it'll reduce the number of seats we're going to lose.